Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today is the supercut of What If Goku Was Half Human. This will be covering the first part of the series with the Dragon Ball content before we move into Z. Like I said in my previous video, I will be moving on with the group of things as time goes on, so we may not see that video for a while, so that's why I'm putting this out right now. I will do my best to make this as digestible as possible, so if you please stick around and watch the whole video, I would appreciate that. If not, that's fine as well, just please stick around and watch at least a little bit of it if you like my content. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing another What If series. This time it will be a new one. It will be covering the concept of what if Goku was half human. Now there is a lot that needs to happen for this to actually be possible, so throw in a few what ifs here that I added, and the whole story is changed from Dragon Ball to Z. For now there will be a lot of focus on the Dragon Ball part of it, because Z will be the whole different beast by the time we get to it. But how about we just get into the story? This whole story begins with one mission where Bardock is sent to a planet called Earth, and his ship breaks down. Of course, Bardock is no engineer, so it'll be a while before he can find someone who can fix the ship, so he realizes that he'll make the most of his time here. Turns out that he ends up never getting his ship fixed because no one is smart enough to fix Saiyan technology. Several years would pass from this point on where Bardock would even meet an Earthwoman and they would get into a relationship. It would also be during these couple of years that he would meet an old man on a mountain called Gohan, who he would become good friends with. Eventually, Bardock and his partner would have a kid, and well, he would want to use a Saiyan name. Gohan would suggest a name, and he would go with it, naming his child Goku. It would be a couple of years after Goku would be born where Bardock and his partner would split up due to differences, and he would move in with Gohan shortly afterwards. Years would pass, and Gohan would even survive here because Bardock would keep Goku indoors during the night. Of course, we get into the years of Dragon Ball, and Bulma would show up just like usual, but it'd be a far better greeting than the original. And by that I mean that she'd meet Gohan first, who would eventually bring her to Bardock and Goku. She would tell everyone about the Dragon Balls and what their purpose is, and Bardock would think the story would sound very familiar, but he wouldn't be sure at this point. Either way, she would get to see it and she would ask to have it, but Gohan wouldn't be sure about letting it go. That's when Bardock would come up with one condition where she would bring Goku on her journey to give him some experience. Goku would be excited hearing all this, and Bulma wouldn't be sure, but she'd agree to it to get the Dragon Ball. Eventually the two would go on their way and they would begin their journey just like in the original. However, for the next part of our story, we are on our way to Kame House with the Ox King. His goal there is to bring his daughter Chi-Chi to train with his former master. Eventually they arrive to see Roshi sitting out on the beach, and he's very curious into why Ox King has arrived. He tells Roshi that his daughter likes to fight far more than he can handle and that he wants him to consider training her. Roshi thinks about it for a minute and realizes he hasn't had a student for a while, so he might as well consider it. After seeing how eager his former student is, he gives in and says he'll train his daughter. He introduces the two and says goodbye to Chi-Chi, and then she goes off with Roshi. It's here where Bulma and Goku would end up on the same journey up to the point where they end up meeting Roshi. Eventually, when Roshi introduces Chi-Chi to everyone, they notice something odd in that both of them seem to have tails. Goku, however, is the only one visibly happy about this fact, and Chi-Chi is very nervous to talk to Goku. Mostly because she's never been around someone her own age, but also because she's never met someone who had a tail like her. But regardless of that fact, Goku and Bulma still do need the Dragon Ball from Roshi, and they ask if he can give it to him. Roshi says no because he doesn't know if they can keep it out of the hands of evil yet. Goku, however, says that he's been training his whole life and that he can keep it out of the hands of any enemies and that he's fought some enemies on the way here. So Roshi ends up taking this as a challenge, and then he tells Goku that if he can take the Dragon Ball from him, they can take it on their way. After a couple of minutes of running around, Goku is exhausted, but Roshi lets his guard down and Goku manages to sneak up behind him to grab the Dragon Ball. Everyone there is very impressed with Goku and his abilities, even after being tired, and Chi-Chi even comes up and congratulates him. Goku and Chi-Chi even start talking a little bit, but Bulma tells them that they have to go before anyone else starts to find the Dragon Balls. And with that, Goku and Bulma leave on their adventures to go find the Dragon Balls. Meanwhile, still on Kame House, Chi-Chi uses the inspiration from Goku to try and become even stronger and match his strength. So to cover the end of the first part of Bulma and Goku's journey, they end up meeting the same type of people and end up falling into Pilaf's trap just like in the original. The wish still ends up getting interrupted and Goku still transforms into a great ape and they have to cut his tail off. Bulma does remember this event for when she has to see Roshi next because this may happen with Chi-Chi in the future. After everyone splits apart, Goku goes to look for the 4-star Dragon Ball and he brings it back with him when he goes to see his father and Gohan. Bardock is impressed with how strong Goku has gotten against all the obstacles he has been through so far. He used to think that his power level would be a hindrance, but now he knows that he can be a strong Saiyan warrior anyways and get over it. Goku even decides to bring up Chi-Chi one night saying that he found a Saiyan girl training with Master Roshi. This makes Bardock worry a little bit because if they did send another Saiyan to Earth, then there may be more on the radar of Frieza and his forces than he may have thought. After a brief stay at his home, he does go back to Roshi to see if he could be trained, but they are interrupted by another kid arriving on the island requesting the same thing. Roshi is willing to train Goku, but he doesn't know who this Krillin kid is, so he decides to put him on a task and he puts Goku with him just to be safe. He tells him to go find some adult company, preferably a woman, just so he's not going to be around kids all the time. After some searching, Goku and Krillin bring back a woman named Launch, and Roshi officially decides to accept them as his students. Bulma does stop by during this time frame and she does tell Roshi about what happened with Goku just in case Chi-Chi has the same reaction. Roshi does take note of it and he looks at the two children thinking how odd they are and why they're so different from everyone else. In the meantime, Roshi decides that he's going to train them for the mixed martial arts tournament so he can see how good they are. And so the three kids begin to train, with Goku and Chi-Chi specifically training together because they have so much more fighting spirit than Krillin does naturally. Krillin, however, isn't a slouch and he does manage to keep up with them sometimes after a while. After the training is complete and the kids and Roshi are ready for the tournament, they head over and they get ready to register. Of course, the three kids enter as themselves, but Roshi enters as a mysterious fighter named Jackie Chun just to see how strong they have grown. Okay, so the main fighters are going to be focusing on for this tournament are going to be Roshi as Jackie Chun, Goku, Chi-Chi, Yamcha, and Krillin. So everyone will make it through the elimination round, and then going into the actual tournament, that's when we actually start to see some people get knocked out. Krillin is the first to get knocked out of them all as he faces Chi-Chi, who at this point is far stronger and raw power than him. Everyone else will go through different opponents, but I'm not going to go through all the other opponents just like in the show, so let's just assume they all face them and then win. So moving on to the fighting from the crew, we have Yamcha versus Goku, which isn't easy for Goku, but is definitely not hard for him. Then the other semifinals match would be Roshi versus Chi-Chi, in which it would be a pretty decisive victory for Roshi, but Chi-Chi would put up hell of a fight. And with that, we return to normal, and the same exact events would happen, with Roshi still blowing up the moon to prevent Goku from destroying the arena. And thus, Roshi as Jackie Chun would win the tournament, and Goku would be more determined to come back next time more powerful. And with that, everyone will have to decide how they want to train for the next tournament. Goku goes off on his own just like in the original, and Chi-Chi decides to go back and stay with her father for a little bit while Krillin stays with Roshi to train. And with Goku going off to find the Dragon Balls and train his strength, we will end that part here. Now if you notice, it does sound a little different between segments. I'm not the greatest with audio, so that may just be right now, but I did record it in 2 takes over different time periods, so that would be why. This one did take a little bit to get out and plan, so I would appreciate some more support on this video. I do appreciate any and all support, so if you do like and subscribe, I thank you, and I am out. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be covering the second part of what if Goku was a hybrid, or what if he was half human, whatever I'm going to end up calling this series in the long term. As I mentioned in the previous video, the first part really blew up, so I figured I'd prioritize the second part here and try and get it out as soon as possible. I'm going to get into the intro since I'm going to make it a little longer than usual. Alright, so at the end of the last part, we ended at the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament and the results of that. Now, I have been getting some comments of people putting their own thoughts on the series and where it will go, and while I appreciate that, I want to clear some things up. I will cover Chi-Chi's origins in the video, and other Saiyans during the invasion and later will be brought up, and Gine may be mentioned as a passing reference when Raditz shows up. Besides those bits of spoilers, I'm probably going to let you guys enjoy the series by yourselves as the story plays out. Alright, well this has been going on long enough, I don't want to wait too long, so let's get into the video itself. As usual, Goku goes on his journey and becomes stronger, and he comes across the Red Ribbon Army as usual, which for him in this timeline is no big deal. It's actually even less of a challenge than it is usually, so he doesn't have any trouble doing any of the important events. After taking care of the few generals that are left around, he ends up going and training with his father, and he decides to grow stronger that way. Bardock sees good potential in his son and decides to teach him to control the Great Ape form by teaching him to balance his power well in the transformation. Eventually, Goku's training is interrupted, and he hears from Bulma that some things are going down in the land of Korin and that he needs to help out. Apparently some suspicious activity has been happening, and they hear about someone even being sent there to cause some trouble. This of course piques Goku's interest, so Bardock tells him to go off and deal with the issue, and he does so, arriving there just in time to see a mercenary arrive. The mercenary introduces himself as a man named Tao, and he doesn't take Goku seriously as he just perceives him as a basic child. Of course, Goku doesn't take that threat lightly, and he tells Tao to leave, but he doesn't, and he keeps trying to harass the people there, and this leads to Goku threatening him with a fight. Tao decides to fight and take down the man, trying to prove his strength to Goku, but Goku ends up stopping him, saving the man's life, who he later learns is named Bora. This leads to a solo fight between Tao and Goku, and of course Goku wins this fight because of his enhanced strength, and now because he gets his first major rage boost. With Goku knowing that Tao's a threat, he decides to take care of him then and there with a giant Kamehameha, wiping him out of existence. Goku has a short conversation with Bora and Appa about their lands and their history before he goes off to fight with his friends at Kame House. During this training, they end up growing stronger, and they end up learning about the tournament and trying to get a head start on their training. At some point, Goku goes to train back with Bardock, and this time he brings Chi-Chi with him as a way to get her training like him with other Saiyans. Before Bardock can start training the two, he asks Chi-Chi about her history, and she replies with some information. Chi-Chi says that she doesn't have many memories of her past life, but she knows that she came here as a toddler on a mission. She doesn't know what that mission was exactly, as the Ox King found her, and he decided to raise her as his own. And after that, he basically raised her as a regular human, even though he probably knew that she wasn't from here. Anyway, once they get back on the topic of training, Bardock offers her the power of mastering the Great Ape form, but she declines, not wanting to use it. During the later stages of the training, Chi-Chi even trains with Goku in Great Ape form to try and make herself even stronger. After this, it's not long before the 22nd World Tournament arrives, and Bardock brings them there so they can sign up. Now, going over some power, we have Goku and Chi-Chi, who are the strongest there, with no one else being able to contend with them except Tien Shinhan. Now, skipping to the last two fights, we have Goku facing off against Jackie Chun and Chi-Chi facing off against Chiaotzu. Yamcha faces Krillin and Tien faces Nam. Chiaotzu tries to tire Chi-Chi out using his regular abilities, but she even has the power of temporary flight, so he is eliminated. Goku vs Jackie Chun is a rematch of last year's finals, and Goku eventually wins after using his extra power on him. Now, Tien and Krillin both move on, so it's Chi-Chi vs Tien and Goku vs Krillin. Krillin tries his hardest to beat Goku, but he's nowhere near Goku's level, so he ends up losing. The same thing happens with Chi-Chi, and even though she is a Saiyan, Tien is more skilled than she is. Now, the final battle would begin between Goku and Tien, and it would be a tough fight all around. However, Goku's extra strength and stamina leads to Tien being tired earlier than usual. As Tien gets tired and less powerful, he ends up getting knocked off the stage by a powerful Kamehameha. Goku wins his first world tournament instead of losing here, and as usual events play out, Krillin ends up dying and Goku ends up discovering his body. As everyone looks upon the scene and Roshi explains what has happened, Goku ends up getting a massive rage boost and no one can control him. After hearing enough of the explanation, he flies off trying to find the creature that killed Krillin. It isn't long before Goku finds Tambourine, and with his extra power and rage boost in this timeline, he ends up killing him swiftly. Goku, in his fit of rage, still doesn't fly back to the group. Instead, he flies off to Mount Paozu to go see his father. Bardock senses a massive power level coming towards him, and eventually he recognizes it as his son, shocking him. When Goku finally arrives, Bardock asks why he is so strong there, and Goku has no idea as he sort of blacked out during his rage boost. Of course, once Goku explains everything, Bardock kinda understands why he did that, and he understands the concept of a rage boost. So Bardock tells him that if he's gonna face the King Piccolo guy and try and bring him down, he's gonna have to get stronger, so Bardock offers to train him. Goku of course accepts because he wants to be stronger and he wants to take revenge for Krillin's death. Bardock even brings up the concept of trying to use his Grade 8 power in his base form to see if that can make him stronger. Goku accepts all advantages here, so he ends up taking the deal and he trains with Bardock to master his Grade 8 power internally. This leads to Goku being stronger than usual as he has a massive boost from his Grade 8 power inside of him. Bardock eventually senses that Goku has had enough training and tells him to go find his friends so they can figure out a plan. Luckily, when Goku finds the group, they do have a plan set in place to use the Mafuba, as they explain it to Goku as a way to contain evil and make sure it doesn't escape. So they set up the plan for Roshi to set up the Mafuba and confront King Piccolo while Goku and Tien try and contain him. It takes a while for them to find a place for this plan, but once they do, they end up confronting the king himself. King Piccolo seeks his youth again and sees this as the only thing that can stop him from achieving that power. Once Roshi springs the trap, it gets King Piccolo caught in the wave. Goku and Tien try and contain him inside of it. As Roshi tries to close Piccolo into the wave, he ends up getting out of it through sheer will, causing Roshi to die. It takes everyone a few seconds to realize what has happened, and eventually Goku realizes that Roshi has died and he gets mad due to his rage boost. This rage boost, being the strongest one he's had yet, ends up dwarfing King Piccolo in power and he stands no chance in the fight. Tien, seeing how powerful Goku is right now, decides to play distraction on the side of the battle. After a surprisingly short fight, Goku punches straight through King Piccolo and he spits out an egg not that far away. However, unlike the original timeline, Tien actually sees the egg and decides to go get it. After thinking about it and deciding that they should just destroy it since it's one of King Piccolo's creations, they are contacted by a voice in their heads. This voice introduces himself as Kami, the guardian of the earth, and he tells them that they can't destroy the egg, otherwise he'll die. So he tells them the location of the lookout and to meet them there when they're ready, and they end up heading to the lookout immediately. They are met by Kami and Mr. Popo as they question why they were brought here. Kami explains his connection to King Piccolo and the egg and why it's so necessary to his survival. Goku and Tien begin to understand that Kami is actually good despite looking like King Piccolo, and they hand the egg over to him. This leads to Kami telling them that he will raise his egg to be nothing like King Piccolo's. He surely programmed himself into it at the end of his life. After this all happens, both Tien and Goku go back to training, Goku eventually bringing Chi-Chi back with him to train with Bardock and beginning their long session towards the next tournament. Throughout the years, both Chi-Chi and Goku both get their growth spurt and even agree to start dating during this time period. Having grown closer throughout their life, this isn't nearly as hard of a decision as usual, and Goku isn't nearly as dumb as he usually is during this timeline. Goku gets better at mastering his rage boost and his internal Grade 8 power. Chi-Chi also benefits greatly from training with Goku and Bardock, understanding her Saiyan power better. Everyone else benefited from their training with Goku and Chi-Chi earlier in the story, but now that they train with Bardock most of the time, it isn't nearly as effective. They eventually fall behind like in the regular story, but it's even earlier in this case. Piccolo grows up like normal, but instead of being evil, he ends up growing under the guidance of Kami. Over time, Kami intends to raise Piccolo as the next guardian of Earth. This time Piccolo still sees Goku as his rival, but only in terms of fighting him and proving who's stronger. The build to this 23rd World Tournament is far less tense and just filled with training and trying to grow stronger from every fighter. Now we can assume who would move on in this tournament based on what I said already, but there is a little surprise here as Bardock joins the tournament as well. Seeing this as a chance to spar with his son now as an adult, he joins hoping that he can fight either his son or Piccolo. Now to the surprise of nobody, Bardock does make it to the semifinals and he does end up facing Goku. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, made it to the semifinals as well, and she ends up facing Piccolo. The father-son fight goes first, and it's exactly how you think it would be, as a tough back-and-forth fight. The thing is, Bardock never intended on winning this fight, so he holds back, letting Goku eliminate him without letting him know exactly what happens. Meanwhile, the other match is a bit more one-sided, as Chi-Chi is a bit more weaker than Goku is, and this allows Piccolo to pick up the victory. Now this leads us to an alternate take on the original finals here, with Piccolo being neutral during this time, and Goku being his regular self, just a bit more Saiyan-like. Now instead of the chaos that happened originally, it's a really fair fight this time around, with each one trying to fight fair when they can. Now of course Goku does get the upper hand here because of his Saiyan genes allowing him to grow during the fight. Now this isn't to say Piccolo isn't a fair fight for Goku in this form, it's just that he isn't strong enough to keep up with him long term. After a few more minutes of struggling to keep up from Piccolo, he gets knocked out by a big Kamehameha from Goku. And with that, Goku wins his second world tournament, with Piccolo showing him some respect at the end before going off to Kami again. Goku is once again celebrated by his friends, and specifically Bardock and Chi-Chi. Bardock takes Goku back to Mount Paozu, and Chi-Chi goes with them, officially moving in with them. Alright, so that's where I'm going to end the video. I do thank you for watching the video if you made it this far. If I sound a little sick there at the end, I do have a little bit of congestion at the moment, but I had to finish the recording, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, this one took a little bit longer to do, and I do thank you for watching the video and making this worth the effort. With that being said, I am out.